For those who do not know me, my name is Jason Murphy. I'm one of 8 head nerds here at Enable. I primarily work on the UEM side of our business, or better known as RMM. I'm joined today with my good friend and colleague, Lewis Pope, who is our head nerd for security, all things security, and of course, compliance, which is a good segue because today we are going to be talking about a CMMC technical workshop, navigating compliance with Enable. What does that actually mean? Okay, so let's get into it. Next slide. Now, if you are new to CMMC and of course NIST 800-171, what I can tell you is if you go into your GoToWebinar pop-up, what you're going to do is hit the, I think it's called materials now, it used to be called handouts. Depends on what version you're running. But if you go into the handout section, you will see a number of materials there for you to digest. Specifically, when you look at number 3, which is N-Central in your CMMC 2.0 compliant N-Central. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about that as we go through. But before we do, we're going to be talking about the preview, which is I call it the CMMC edition of N-Central. There's other names for it, but effectively, it is the CMMC edition of our N-Central platform. Next slide. Now, you are attending this particular webinar for a good reason, right? Now, what I want you to do is grab your phone, use that QR code. I will also, once Lewis starts talking at some point, I will also drop that link into the chat as well. But we do want you to get involved. We are looking for our partners who want to get into the preview of N-Central for CMMC 2.0. Okay, so please grab your phone, use that QR code, and please register for that. Registrants will be reviewed and scheduled as part of this rollout. Now, we are anticipating a GA probably around January, but now would be a great time to get involved and obviously make sure that this is going to work for you. Okay.
And of course, just as a little bit of a primer, since when we don't know everybody's here, what your journey looks like right now around CMMC. So just to kind of set the stage, what we're focusing on talking about and where N-Central and Adlim is going to be relevant here is, well, there's 3 levels of CMMC now. Originally, there was 5 versions, and they took it back to the drawing board. They made some modifications based on feedback. We're now left with 3 versions. What we're going to be mainly focusing on and talking about today is level 2 is going to be kind of what we're addressing. Because level 1 is easy. Level 1 is about basic cyber hygiene, best practices. There's a handful of controls. It's easy. It's relatively easy to do. Level 2, it gets a little bit harder. These are where the challenges start coming up because this involves specifically CUI and FCI, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a second. But it also comes with a ton of additional security controls. The fact now that it's no longer self-assessment, you have to have a third party assess you. There's the need for security system plans. There's needs for POAMs, which are, your after actions and the things you need to do to fill your gaps on, what comes up whenever you do go through your audits. And then also the fact that, well, level 2 is going to be for prime and subcontractors. Level 3 is mainly, that's going to be your primes. That's almost exclusively primes. And that's also going to be something that's kind of, chances are, out of our remit, out of our purview. You're not going to be providing services to that level of a organization. And also, well, they have to be audited directly by the federal government, not by the third party auditors that are available now. So controlled unclassified information. This is at the heart of a lot of what we're having to do around the CMMC version of N-Central. It drives a lot of your decisions around what you're going to be doing in your environments when it comes from technical controls, administrative controls, uh, or even operational controls. They're almost all around the how are we properly handling controlled unclassified information. And controlled unclassified information is a broad category of stuff. It's just basically any information that's created or processed on behalf of the government as part of a federal contract in some way.
Now, Lewis, quick question,
Yes,
only because you were talking about a few very security specific things earlier around primes and subprimes, and now we're getting into CUI data. Can you give the audience a little bit of an idea of what maybe those operational challenges are, and what's the challenge for MSPs today or people who are looking to do CMMC today, and just like a real kind of live example?
right. So the first thing is just that question around CUI is, well, how do I identify it? And that's the first operational challenge is, well, how do you identify the CUI in your client's environments? And the honest answer is, chances are that's not what the MSP should be doing. That's what the data compliance officer for that business should be doing. Whoever is responsible for their, their federal contracts, their that might be an office manager, it might be a team lead. They could wind up being so many people, but usually that part of identifying and labeling CUI is something that your client is going to do. Then that would make it easier for you as an MSP because you're able to, oh, okay, great. Then that's a bunch of stuff that we're not going to touch. We're not going to mess with. We're going to enclave it somewhere. We're going to put it somewhere else so we can treat that particular set of information and the computers that process it a different way than all of the other systems that don't process CUI. And we can treat those the regular way. But that's the real kind of the kink in the chain for MSPs because CMMC kind of tells you, forces you to say, hey, I can't manage this the way I've always managed all my other clients. I have to change the way I manage things. I might have to start splitting up things like all of my regular clients and regular and central, and then my clients that are under the purview of CMMC go in my CMMC ready version of
No,
Incentral.
you make a good point there, because obviously we have built a CMMC edition of Incentral for a really good reason, and that reason really kind of comes back to our partners. So let me just close that. So one of those things is when we have built this, we also understand that MSPs are operationally challenged already. There's talent shortages, there's labor shortages. Can you make any recommendations on maybe how to get started? Like what do those challenges really look like?
Right. Well, the first is just take the temperature of your current client base. Who out of them are subcontractors? Have they already been talking to you about this? October the 15th, I believe, was a no, November the 15th was a very important CMMC milestone. Basically, it's from this point on, you can expect that every contract that your subprime clients are going to go bid on is going to have the CMMC language in there and the requirements in it. So if they've not been paying attention to it, they may be reaching out to you in a panic saying, hey, I'm about to lose you know, half of our revenue because we're about to lose this contract because we are not currently undergoing CMMC efforts. We need to start this now. So you might start seeing those kinds of requests come in a panic. And then there's also future attrition of if you're not going to take this on, what is that going to represent for you? Is that going to shrink your client's base? Does this represent an opportunity you just can't turn away from? There's a lot of business reasons why you want to tackle this, but the operational challenges are going to weigh against that. And of course, well, MSPs are always good at adapting. They're always good at scaling where they need to scale with the tools they have available under the constraints that are being imposed on them by either client demands or regulatory demands. So
Mhm.
you can succeed here. There are absolutely opportunities. There are MSPs out there that are already providing services into the arena. We'll be talking a little bit about that later. But there are definitely those key challenges. You have to, do you have the internal talents? There are registered practitioner certifications from the Cyber AD, and there's the auditor certifications. Well, first thing to understand is that you, as an MSP providing services to your clients, you're never going to be an auditor. You are going to be an implementer. You're going to go in and help your clients implement things that are going to be in alignment with CMMC and NIST 800-171. Someone else is going to have to come behind you as an auditor and verify that. So just kind of bite the bullet on, yes, somebody's going to be checking your work, but also the talent you need internally. Do I need to get somebody who's certified? You don't have to have somebody internally that's certified. Is it going to benefit you greatly to have somebody internally that's certified as a registered practitioner or an RP and an RPA? Yes, it will absolutely be to your benefit to have one of those on staff, because that proves that, yeah, hey, business wise, you have something that says, yes, we have trained professionals that know how to implement these types of security controls. Don't worry, we got it. We'll get you through your audit, no problem. Well, maybe not
Now,
a problem, but we'll get you through it. That's the
now,
biggest thing.
now, Lewis, one question for you as you're talking about these challenges. Obviously, challenges always feels like a negative. Um, but you're also, as you're talking through the challenges, you're really kind of unveiling what some of the opportunity is here. And I know you work really closely with Steph, especially around selling cybersecurity services and everything else. Is there an opportunity for MSPs to now go upmarket to um, maybe not get into CMMC auditing, but obviously implementation services? Or I know you and Steph have talked about this a little bit, but can you talk maybe about what that opportunity is now for MSPs that can actually hop into a CMMC edition of Ed Central?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. There are so many opportunities out there because all of those subprime contractors need help. And those subprime contractors, they run the gambit from small machine shops that are just milling aluminum, and they probably only have like 15 employees and 10 computers, all the way up to those mid-market opportunities where they may need that assistance of, they have that internal IT, but that internal IT is able to take care of the normal environment, and they need assistance specifically with the enclaving or the setting up the CMMC compliant section of the client's environments. And those represent those opportunities, I think, for MSPs that can really nail this down to, pick up a lot of those co-managed opportunities that you may not have been able to pick up before.
Awesome. And one of the main differences that I think you outlined is between CMMC1 and CMMC2 is the fact that in CMMC1 there is no auditing, right? I believe you self-attest, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with CMMC2 there is this additional oversight, right? As we talk about CMMC, can you maybe outline what the differences are between because a lot of buzzwords are being thrown around, like I need FedRAMP, I need CMMC. Can you now maybe unpack that part and really outline what those key differences would be?
Yeah, yeah. So there is, the two words, buzzwords that you run into the most is CMMC and FedRAMP.
Mhm.
These get tossed around interchangeably a lot when they really should not be. CMMC, and very, uh, we're being very particular and intentional about this around CMMC ready versus FedRAMP, because FedRAMP is another one of those. It is a process. You're going to go through audits. You're going to go through a series of basically gatekeeping checks to say, are you doing everything you're supposed to be doing in compliance with everything everything that is encompassed underneath the FedRAMP requirements? That is very expensive. That is very resource intensive. And even from the MSP business model, it's a almost, I want to say too expensive, but it's a, I can't put all of my clients in FedRAMP because one, well, they don't belong there. And two, it's going to cost way too much to put all of my clients in FedRAMP. So I'm still, as an MSP, going to need my non-CMMC, non-FedRAMP, and then my regular FedRAMP or CMMC environments. So you still, kind of have to accept that I'm going to split the house a little bit here. But for CMMC, it's all about the CUI, the controlled unclassified information. It's all about protecting it, taking care of it, making sure that it's not going places it should not go. And the cost of being CMMC ready to be able to align to everything around those requirements for handling CUI is a lot easier than all of the hoops you have to jump through FedRAMP. So
Yeah, just to
speed,
speak to that,
yeah,
and sorry to interrupt you on that one, is because I have been involved in the kind of the FedRAMP project around N-central as well, and it is a monumental cost and lift to do FedRAMP when you're a SaaS provider. I know there was a particular question around is Cove or is Nsight FedRAMP? Obviously not today, but those are the things that we are definitely looking at, but they take a much, much longer and is a much arduous journey to kind of get to that end state.
right. Versus the CMMC, which is there was we don't, not many people in the space use the FedRAMP equivalent term anymore. But FedRAMP equivalent used to be a term that people would toss around for describing, yes, we're doing everything internally the way we should. So we don't need FedRAMP because we're not hosting on a cloud service. We're hosting it internally. And we're taking over the responsibilities of all of those things that you would usually offload to somebody else, to that SaaS provider. That's what we're doing here with the CMMC ready version of N-central. We're giving you the opportunity to bypass for now that FedRAMP requirement by saying, no, we're not going to cloud host it. We're going to host it ourselves. And then giving you that ability to put that instance of N-central wherever you need to put it to, based on scope, client size, how many you're supporting, and everything. You'll find where you need to put those N-central CMMC instances at so that you can, well, not have to worry about if CUI touches it because, well, hey, it's internal. It's on your infrastructure that you're going to have under control where you don't have to worry about, again, all of those additional controls around FedRAMP.
Right.
And that's really where we're trying to, well, that's where we're at today. That's where we're starting with what we're going to be making available for you through the CMMC N-central ready version that we're going to be providing. But it's not just N-central. It's we're also going to be providing for you Adlumin, and I'll be talking a little bit about how Adlumin fits into this arena of CMMC in a little bit. But Jason, whenever we're talking about requirements, it's, you have to remember it's not a checkbox.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, let me just expand on that because when we talk about meeting the requirements for CMMC2, it's important to remember that this isn't something you can just check off with a single tool, right? Or a quick configuration change. You need strong, well integrated technology stack behind you, right? Tools that give you full visibility, that kind of automate the heavy lifting and keep an eye on all the things around the clock that are absolutely essential, right? That's where N-central comes in, right? And that's where N-central excels at. And again, even if you're using Nsight or Cove or one of our other cloud products, I would encourage you to check out N-central for CMMC, right? Will we get there down the road with FedRAMP and maybe, let's say this time next year or maybe even later? I don't know how long that process actually takes. But you can actually hit the ground running today. And that's where, N-central has always kind of excelled, right? It's on-prem technology that we can, either host for you today, like in terms of today, we can host it for you, or you can have it on-prem. But now you can actually have CMMC um, to ready in Central, where you can now actually place that in your own enclave. And then again, you can enforce security policies, manage access controls, and produce the reports that you need to show you are aligned with CMMC 2.0. And obviously, this can be assisted by N-Central in this CMMC Ready edition. The familiarity of N-Central UEM, but you know, it's configured to help you stay compliant, right?
Right.
Now, Lewis, can you maybe expand on that just a little bit in terms of like a deep security dive?
Yeah. So we've got we'll go a little bit into the well, what exactly are the differences later, but
Yeah.
the point is that it is a we've taken the guesswork out of it for a lot of things. It's always been the case that you could have taken in Central, hosted it yourself somewhere, went through all of the effort yourself, and you could have built out a CMMC ready version of it yourself. But it was all, in the past, it was left to you. So that's what we are speeding your process up. We're getting you through a lot of the, well, should this be enabled? Should this not be enabled questions on how N-central is configured. So we're taking a lot of that off of your plate, and your teams don't have to spend 2 months, 3 months trying to figure that out. And then we're also, and this is kind of a good kind of uh, nuancing the conversation here. Yes, we're saying we will have a CMMC, version of N-central available for you to go use, but we're also saying that, oh, by the way, we also have AdLumen, which is a SaaS service, a hosted service that you can use in these environments. And that's like, well, why can I use one and not the other? And that's because of, and we'll get into a little bit later, but we're considering AdLumen a security protection asset. And whenever you get into the technicals, when you start getting into reading deep into it around CMMC, security protection assets don't process CUI. So they aren't subject to the same requirements. So
Right.
there's always I don't want to say it's the get out of jail free card, but it's the answer that question first. Is CUI or FCI going into the system? And if the answer is no, then most likely you don't have to worry about CMMC. That's not the case in all circumstances, but it's a really good first question to ask, because if the answer is yes, well, then you absolutely know you have to. Um,
Right, right.
yep. And then, well, so with that, let's not spook anybody on, this new version of N-central. There's still going to be a lot of the familiarity and the things you love there, right?
Absolutely. So let's kind of unpack that, right? So what do you get with the CMMC edition of N-central? Obviously, continuous network scanning, right? You're going to be able to use those probe and agents to be able to scan and detect and pull in the device information that you've always been used to, right? Therefore, you get obviously the things like remote control, monitoring, and software management. With software management, obviously, what we're going to be able to do is look at the underlying asset information. We're going to be able to push or pull applications just as you've always done. And of course, endpoint protection and automation, right? Device configuration, patch management, automation, reporting, audit logging, and of course, programmatically being able to use your N-central through REST APIs. Okay, so you're going to have plenty of flexibility within this particular platform to be able to manage your CMMC customers. Okay, and that is going to be huge for you. So, and again, multi-platform through Windows, Mac, and Linux devices. Okay, and I think when we go to the next slide, um, Lewis, if you just want to maybe talk a little bit about a particular example here.
Right. And this is going back to this isn't new territory for in Central. There are in Central enable partners out there, MSPs and SMBs that have been using in Central, and they took on the responsibility themselves of configuring it in a CMMC compliant manner. So it can be made fit for purpose. It can be made to do the job, and we have demonstrations of that being done where we have customers out there using it. Intech is one of them, where they went out, implemented it, put the proper restrictions and proper configurations in place, and were able to get right through their audits. So this has not ever been done before. This is, we're taking the time to provide you with a version so you can get to this point faster. There's no need for, there's really no need for everybody to get the standard version and then start trying to beat it with a hammer to make it fit. We're going to give you that version that's already going to fit in that hole a little bit better. You'll just have to tune it and tweak it for your environments, and away you go.
Awesome. Well, there is one question, and we're going to do a Q&A at the end, and I was going to kind of save everything for near the end, Lewis. This question kind of, as people who are managing customers, right? And that can be 10 customers, that could be 1,200, right? The question is, for the enclave, can N-Central UEM managed devices and N-Site managed devices be on the same network, or should they be logically or physically separated? Meaning any CUI work needs to be in the enclave separate from the normal corporate network. Can you kind of unpack that? Because we do have a lot of N-Site partners. Obviously, people want to get into CMMC,
Right.
Ready N-Central. Can you carve this up? And if you can, what does that look like?
Right. So I think the best way to approach it is just from think about the operational standpoint of it's not just technical controls, it's administrative operational controls as well. The people that are, the individuals at the companies you provide support to have their own responsibility and accountability for handling CUI, putting it in the right places. And then, your job is to come along and make that a little bit easier, to help them make sure that that information stays in the right locations and it doesn't escape containment and go places that it shouldn't. That's where that's where you're helping with the technical controls, and some of the administrative and operational controls as well sometimes. But from the sanity of the end users, it's usually better to enclave it all and set those clear expectations that this data lives over here and there's a certain way of accessing and processing through it. And all of the other business operations can happen the way you're normally, happy to go with. And those are where you can split and where you would keep all of your non CMMC purview parts of the environment could still stay on Insight. They could still stay on N-Central. And then you would break off all of those, sometimes it may only be 2 or 3 computers that you need to break off, but you break them off into their own enclave, onto their own segmented network, onto their own VLAN, with their own monitoring and their own, whatever you may decide to manage them with. In this case, N-Central CMMC version.
Right. Awesome.
And
Right.
it maps out very well, because that's another part of that process is, well, I have to map out to these technical controls. I have to map out to what's being asked to be done, and things around access control, audit and accountability, configuration management, security assessments, service monitors have always been the underappreciated powerhouse of N-Central to me, because they let you achieve so much, and they can be turned towards this as well. Whatever you're going to decide to implement for your endpoint security, you can use a service monitor to monitor it. Your configuration management and access controls, well, you need to make sure that local users or local administrators don't exist on these machines. Service monitors are a great way of continually monitoring for that. And there's even more of these controls that N-Central maps out to. And some of these are going to be that, yes, innately by the fact you have the CMMC version of N-Central deployed, you are achieving that particular control. But there are going to be other controls that are associated with the endpoints you're managing and the administrative decisions around the environment and the operational decisions around the environment that you'll be using N-Central to help monitor or to help implement.
So just to unpack a little bit of what you're describing, especially when it came to that question, you would not carve up parts of the environment into CMMC and then other parts into, say, Nsight, right? You would effectively, per customer, right? So I just want to make this crystal clear. Per customer, administratively, operationally, and all the other ways you described it, house that customer in that one single entity, CMMC, 2 Ready and Central.
Right. And that's it's the way to go, is to just treat that entirety of that client, especially whenever there are certain sizes, is just segment that client off into the CMMC ready version. Don't try to split hairs on it. You can just save yourself a lot of time, headache, and frustration by just, I'm going to take advantage of all the things that the CMMC version of N-Central is doing for me, instead of having to stand up those additional security measures and controls in the environment to try to continue to keep things more separate than what they necessarily need to be to achieve your
Right.
goals.
Understood.
All right. So, and that's, a good point is, well, what changes should you be expecting to this streamlined version of N-Central for CMMC readiness? First, of course, is just the self-host. We're giving you the opportunity to take it and put it where you need to put it. But then there is the fact of, well, back to what is CUI and CMMC being CMMC being part of dictating how you're going to have to handle that CUI. The biggest challenge with it is always it can't go out into the cloud. So that's why we're having to go with this on-site version, the self-hosted version first as an approach, instead of a big, giant, much different FedRAMP version that might be, again, multiple, way out on the horizon.
Right, and there is a lot of underlying features and functionality in N-Central. People come to me all the time, is like, should I go hosted or should I go on-prem? I get the question, like, I wouldn't say every day, but almost every day. There are reasons why you typically pick and choose, but with the CMMC Ready Edition, we have actually removed a lot of the underlying cloud technologies, right? Because we have to, because we do not have FedRAMP certification for those technologies just yet. So as you can see in terms of the list before you, a lot of that has been removed. Now there probably will be, and I think there's a slide where we can talk about take control. Remind me if that's true, Lewis. Keep me on track because I do not want to forget it.
We can stick that in right here.
Yeah, we can do that. So it's one of those things where when we start talking about FedRAMP, or when we start talking about cloud technologies, as you know, take control is a cloud technology. And I really kind of wanted to point out, and I'm just trying to find my resource here. Bear with me for a second here. I think I closed it one sec. Is that when we start looking at take control, for example, we need to be able to handle take control differently, right? So we have many partners using take control today in CMMC environments, even though it is not FedRAMP. Okay, so take control is a cloud technology. Basically, you go out to what we used to call a socket server, but effectively a geolocated server on the internet in a cloud environment, and then it would negotiate down to the particular endpoint to kind of handshake between you and the endpoint in question, they are using managerial controls today, okay, versus FedRAMP technical controls. So I really wanted to outline that while we are getting there, I don't know if K-Control will be ready kind of, GA, but I know we're getting obviously very, very close. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit as well, Lewis.
Right, right, right. And that just that it speaks to that fact of the real thing, the real concern is the CUI and the FCI. If you have methods of preventing CUI and FCI from making it into a system, whatever those controls are, administrative, employee training, uh, individuals that are handling CUI and FCI should have their own training and their own responsibilities and accountability to know that they shouldn't put CUI in certain systems. They should only put CUI in systems that are approved and flagged for it. If you can implement those administrative controls and other controls to make that happen, then you're okay. But that's the thing. A lot of times is people don't like the human answer. They want the technical restrictive answer. So even though it's a very much a case of where you can, it's well, then you now have the responsibility and accountability of ensuring that CUI and FCI does not make it into it.
Right.
And we're just giving you that cover of, well, hey, you have the self-hosted version, and there's a little bit less of that risk associated with it because of that.
Right. Excellent.
Right. So again, another opportunity for anybody to grab the QR code to sign up for the preview. This will also include your opportunity, hopefully, for the early previews of what else we may be doing with any of the other products around CMMC. So Take Control, for example, or any other efforts that we're going to have into the future. So don't sign if you're absolutely like I'm not using Incentral, that's fine. Still register for the preview program. It's going to be your opportunity to get a handle on and see what we're doing across the board as we're needing our partner, our MSP customers, and our SMB and direct customers out there that are looking at this to provide feedback.
Well, and the other part is maybe you don't need it today. Be a part of the experience, and maybe you'll find a customer 6 months from now that needs something specifically for CMMC because you may not have that today. So enroll, get involved, and obviously, obviously looking forward to having you as a part of the program.
Yeah. And then we're going to talk a little bit about AdLumen as well, because AdLumen is another very important part of this story here, because well, as wonderful as Incentral as UEM is, there are things that it does not do. That's where we're going to be leveraging the AdLumen MDR and XDR functionality. Any familiarity with our with our AdLumen? If you don't know it, if you haven't seen it, really quickly, it is a SIM, XDR, SOAR, and 24/7 managed detection and response platform. It is a cloud-based service, so you would think, hey, that means I can't use this because, well, we thought about that, and as of September, we basically put in a universal CUI data restriction. So that's what allows us to treat, AdLumen as a security protection asset, which means we're saying, hey, it is not going to be processing, storing, or transmitting CUI. Therefore, we get to use it as a SPA. That does changes the dynamics, and that's why we can offer them together. And this is another really, really, really large challenge is especially for MSPs is the economies of this, because some of the controls in CMMC require 24/7 operations, or at least you're never going to achieve them without 24/7 operations.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on your size, your maturity, your staffing, just that part might be something that's preventative, that's going to stop you from being able to take advantage of or engage on opportunities around CMMC. We're taking one more barricade out of the way for you by providing a MDR service that we are not going to be bringing CUI data into.
Now, can you go back one slide just so we can kind of get a better breakdown? There's a couple questions around whether we offer SIM services, SOC services. And you speak to this all the time, and I can probably do it, but you speak to it better than I do. Can we do the typical breakdown of what Adlumin actually is?
Right. So Adlumin is Adlumin's one of our most recent acquisitions at Enable, but we've had a relationship with them in about 2.5 years at this point. Um, and I do like talking about it in the sense of what are the functional capabilities of it. First, it is a SIM. It is you are able to get all your telemetry from your from your workstations, your endpoints, your Windows, Macs, Linux, your firewall appliances, your IDS appliances, pretty much anything that can produce a syslog output. Your cloud services, your Azure, Intra ID, M365 AWS. Um, all of those we can get into the SIM component of um, Adlumin. Then once it's there, we're able to apply, it's XDR, it's expanded detection and response. We're applying data science rules, machine learning, um, AI detections. We're doing what we need to pick out of all of that data we're ingesting. But what are the security signals? What are the security events that need to be elevated, investigated, and that will even trigger SOAR action so we can automate responses to it, or the human bridge if it is necessary for a human to become involved with it. Somebody on the MDR team will engage with it and do initial triage, first line remediation, and isolation of affected devices and users if warranted.
Can
And
you talk a little bit about the roles and responsibilities piece? Like that's an important distinction
yeah,
because our SOC team gets the same visibility as you do, right? You're both working from the same console. It's not like there's a master view from our SOC team or anything like that. We're both using the same stuff. We're going to see the same things. Can you talk about what the different types of responsibilities would look like for SOC with one of our MSP partners?
right. And that is the shared responsibility. Who's responsible for what? Who's going to be doing what when? That's one of the wonderful things about Adlumin is depending on the situation, you don't have to consume the MDR's offering. If you don't want or don't need the 24/7 SOC engagement from our team, you can go without it. But because we do have that universal CUI kind of, we're not bringing it in. We don't have to. You don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about our MDR team seeing CUI in the dashboard in the console. And so what you see is what they see, and they won't see it. You won't. So they're not going to be seeing any CUI being brought in from the endpoints. Um, so you won't see any in there. But that responsibility does give you the opportunity to be very flexible on uh, how you're going to staff out and expand your 24/7 operations. Maybe you've traditionally been 24/7 monitoring and you've been trying to hold off on, going past the step of having somebody on call 24/7, or having the third shift on call rotation. It's just like, no, offload that to the admin service, the MDR service, so that they can take over those 2 a.m. something happened, impossible travel, user account logged in from somewhere they shouldn't have, and they need to be isolated.
Right. And one of the favorite things I love looking at on this slide is AI and UEBA. Can we, oh, well, let's not end on that because I do want to talk about reporting as well. I mean, when people start thinking about the CMMC, they think about compliance and obviously compliance reporting. But before we do, can you talk a little bit about that AI machine learning UEBA?
Yeah, right. So that is one of those user and entity behavioral analytics. So that is monitoring an entity, which can be an endpoint, it can be a user, it can be a server, and just seeing what it does normally over a time period. Not only what that device does, but what that classification of device does, or that class of entity does over time. And saying, yep, you have broken away from that baseline. You're not doing what you normally do. We're going to treat this as unusual. Um, we're doing that, that user and behavioral analytics. We're doing that multiple locations and ways. And it's being reinforced again by not just machine learning and AI, it's also being reinforced by handwritten data science rules because we're very we're taking advantage of AI where we can at Enable. We're doing it under, we're doing it responsibly, transparently. Um, but I'm always loath to say or loath to just label everything AI. Because that kind of loses the breadth of it. We're using LLM enrichment. We're using agentic AIs for ingesting of certain things. We're using them a broad spectrum of tools, not just generic buzzword AI.
Right. Right. Now, can we end on reporting? What does reporting look like? Is it coming? I mean, obviously, a lot of endpoint information, the typical RMM reporting comes from N-central, but what does CMMC 2.0 reporting look like? Like, what does reporting look like when you're an MSP and you're looking after, a customer within an N-central CMMC ready environment? What does reporting look like? Or and the other part of that is what do the controls look like? Like, do we have a matrix for these things? I know the answer to that, but can you expand on that one as well?
Right. So there is the shared responsibility matrix. That will be a very important deliverable that you will be asking for if you are implementing this at a later time. And we will have that all documented out on that. But on the reporting side, it is very much I don't want to say it's nothing new, but what CMMC asks of you around reporting is things you probably should have been able to do or what should be looking to be able to do for even your non CMMC clients. Um, but there's things like, you need to be able to satisfy an auditor is one of the biggest things. So whenever an auditor comes in and says, how do you check, verify, and what is your regular operational process around patching? So how do you patch? When do you patch? How do you verify that you patch? And show me a report that shows you the current status of your patching across your estate. That'll be a big thing that I ask for. And, N-central does a really good job of being able to provide that for you. Then there'll be other reports and documentation that they'll be asking for. It's like, hey, I need you to provide me with an example of the modifications that were made to the firewall appliance in this environment over a time period. Well, that would be something you would be able to address through AdLumen because AdLumen would be ingesting all of those events from your firewall appliances, and it would be just a simple push, time bound it and push the button, get your report. So there's a lot of that of necessary attestation that you have to be able to do. Your auditors are going to come in. They're going to expect you to be able to produce certain types of information. They're going to ask for it. If you tell them no, here's the, it's not like it's an automatic failure in the sense that it's like they turn around, walk out the door, and they never come back again. They'll, say, all right, here's our POAM. This is our, what we need to address and improve on. But those kinds of reports, what you might think are basic, they may be basic, but they're still useful. They're still pertinent. They're still part of honoring and implementing those security controls that are asked for in CMMC.
Perfect. I know we have about 10 minutes left, and I'm pretty sure the next slide after this amazing slide is Q&A. And I know we have a ton of questions. I've been trying to answer a few while you've been riffing. Ben Cameron just wanted to let you know because he says, "Hey Lewis, CMMC-CCP passed 2 weeks ago." So
Nice.
yes, obviously that is a good and a large milestone. Let's see here if I can find some questions. So one I did touch on earlier was any of this work towards N-Site or only towards N-Central. Obviously, today we are starting with N-Central because it's a much easier lift because of its on-premise nature. We do have plans for some of those cloud technologies. I'm not sure where we're going to land in terms of N-Site. I should probably know, but right now that whole FedRAMP journey is much longer and again, like I said, arduous. Um, okay, when CMMC assessments reporting going live? Um,
So I will be nitpicky because you use the word assessment. And for me, that is just go get the assessment report that they provide and fill it out. I mean, I hate to say go grab the spreadsheet and fill out the spreadsheet, but for CMMC assessments, because it's not just technical, it's also administrative controls. It's technical controls, administrative controls, and other controls, operational controls that you're not going to be implementing inside of N-Central. You're not going to be implementing them inside of it. It's the written policies and procedures. Has the data compliance officer at the company undergone their yearly training or certification renewal if they're participating in those kinds of things as well. And that's kind of in that broader scope of the CMMC assessment. Now, for technical assessments, that's where it's like the source knowledge is in there, because one of the questions through the assessments would be about that ability to do the patch status. Well, it's not one single report that's going to be your entirety of your CMMC assessment. It's going to be yes, I have this report available that addresses this requirement need.
okay. And can you also, because there's another follow-up question by someone else, but it's along the same vein, is like, okay, but what about the Adlumin product in assessment? When will that be coming out? We are
Yeah,
using the advanced MDR for our customers.
right. So and again, this is one of those that's just a manual assessment report. That is a click through it and answer the questions. It is, and and to own up on it, that is the old CMMC version 1 assessment in there, not the new CMMC version 2 assessment. We are evaluating, looking at it. That's currently a project under evaluation for updating that one. But in the practical operational sense of it's your outcome and the amount of time and effort you're going to put into it is probably not significantly different than if you did it inside of Adlumin, than if you just simply downloaded the assessment directly and filled it out manually. There's not a lot of time savings at the moment on the assessment part.
Cool. Chrissy at Comtech, who I know very well. Will we get a peek at what it looks like? We are already signed up to get it installed in December, but I'm impatient. Lewis, can you fast track her, please? I just want to put that out there. Okay, so Adlumin is cloud hosted, or can this be hosted locally? Just in terms of, because we didn't really talk about infrastructure and maybe they're not aware, but it is cloud hosted. So maybe you can unpack that one a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was referring to earlier as a security protection asset is what it's being classified as, because we have implemented technical controls to hopefully we have implemented technical controls around CUI for the purpose of keeping CUI out of the platform. Therefore, since it's not going to be processing, storing, or transmitting CUI, it doesn't have to adhere to all these other things around CMMC. And that's why we get to classify it as a security protection asset, and you can consume it as a cloud service. But as soon as you put CUI in it, that means as soon as CUI can go into any type of cloud-based platform, whatever it may be, as soon as CUI can go in it, you either have to say, well, I'm going to take measures to prevent it from getting into it, and that's how I'm going to solve it, or I'm going to let the CUI get into it, at which case I now have to make sure it is a FedRAMP marketplace solution.
Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I'm doing this intentionally, but you always have good answers. Um, what does offsite backup of a local hosted and central server look like? Like when we start talking about backup with CMMC Ready and Central, what does that look like? Do you have an idea? Because I personally can't speak to that one.
Yeah, so this is one of those you're going to have to do some staging. You're going to have to, like you normally would do with in Central, you're going to set it up to do backups, and you're going to have those backups being put somewhere on the local network. Once that backup's on the local network, though, you're going to want to be able to move it somewhere nice and secure. Um, if you have CMMC enclaves already set up in AWS or GovCloud or something like that, perfect place to go store those at. Or again, since it's you control it, you have it, it's on your networks. Move those backups to cold storage somehow on that in that network on a different segmented part of the network or something else to protect it, or VPN it over into a second site that you've got full control over and that you can keep safe. But that would be the way you would end up having to handle it, because you wouldn't be able to automate a cloud backup solution for it unless, of course, the destination for it was a FedRAMP accredited backup solution.
Perfect. Now I know we didn't get through all of the questions, but I just want to let you know. My name's Jason Murphy. This is Lewis Pope, and that is jason.murphy at n-able.com, or is lewis.pope at n-able.com. If we didn't answer your questions, it's not because I didn't want to, it's because I probably just ran out a little bit of a time. I just want to let you know that you can email the two of us at any time. We are your head nerds, and we will obviously get you the answers you need. One thing I do want to kind of end on here is thank you for this webinar. Will the slide deck be available or the recording shared? What I can tell you is that we do not give out slides. It's just a hard and fast rule from our legal team. We cannot share slides. They are all internal. You'll even see in the little red internal use only at the bottom left-hand corner. We are very stringent around data loss protection. That being said, I'm sure the recording will be made available in the coming week or weeks ahead. What I will do is I will send everyone an update if they want that recording, just in case you want to share with your leadership team. If you're a technician, you want to share with a leader, or if you're a leader and you want to share with a tech, those kinds of things. Definitely, I will be, getting this recording, or at least the link to that recording, in the coming weeks ahead. Now, one thing I do want to end on is please sign up for the preview program, get involved. I want to make sure that while maybe it's not ready for you today, maybe it will be tomorrow, but also we have plenty of customers that are ready for this right now. So please sign up for that preview program and please get involved. We'd love that. Lewis, any final thoughts?
No, just as always, thank you for taking the time to take an hour out of your day to spend with us. It's hard as an IT professional, as an MSP, to set aside that time. You're a high demand individual, so we appreciate you deciding to spend an hour with us. Don't hesitate to reach out for any further conversations, and as well, check out if you have access to Enable Me and you're on the CMMC educational journey and you're wanting to learn more, check out there, because there are some boot camps and some other training sessions in there as well.
Yes, n-able.com/events. Lewis, thank you again. Amazing job as always. Always look forward to doing webinars with you. Thanks, everybody. And again, email us if you need anything. Okay, take care.
Been a pleasure.